content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button. And please, feel free to share the video. Thank you.
What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It's the place where black men are allowed to express themselves freely, straight up with no chasers. And the first thing I want to do is, as I always do, is to give a shout out to all of my haters, man. How are y'all doing? What's good with y'all, man? I hope you're having a pleasant afternoon as we segue into the evening. What's good with y'all? The next thing I want to say is, if you haven't, when you come in, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button so you can stay abreast of what's going on here on the Green Gorilla channel. And next, I want to give a shout out to all the members of the Green Gorilla channel, people who help support me and they help me keep it going. So I want to give a shout out to Super Tech. Thank you. Welcome aboard, my good friend. Shout out to Waffle Weave, Kisses from Afar, Rais Muajid, 77 Base X, True King 337, Life of Commerce, Brian McMurray, Apex Prowler, and Karan S. Shout out to Javon Thompson, Anthony Davis, BGS Ibmore, Raphael Brown, Professor Carlton Jones, Artisan MC Damon Brown, Donnell 360, Herbert Lewis, Seven Coast Dojo, and Rogish the Bill Monger. Big up to Pulpit 28, Michael Ross, Charles Rogers, Papa Didas, Travis King, B. Hillfire, Rick Ross, Sandra Jean 955, Brotherly Love 215, and Charles Gilmore 3. Shout out to Patricia Colley, 7Q Pitt, Kwaku Asasi, Gregory Oliver, Greg, Barry Little, Alan Wiley, Mr. Valentino, Jason Hales, and Black Men Being Brutally Honest. Big up to y'all, man. Big up to Omni Americana, Cameron 87, Deshaun Nolly, Brian Peaks, Nelso, Kareen Not Karen, Doc LaRock, Jay Charles, and Mark Holt. Big up to y'all. Big up to Lee Ways, Jeffrey Speed, The Face, Mark Swift, Show Me, Odd Collard, Donald Watts, Cozy Corner, HipHop.ca TV, and Coach DC. Shout out to Kashif Caldwell, I Am Black Man, Nichita, Mr. Blue Collar, Barnolis, Kyle J. Sura, I'm Just Jules, and TD Hip Hop Media. Big up to Drew Main, Mr. Heat, Sir Anthony, MLR, Universal 178, Black Swerve 404, Rashid Barnes, Aaron Smith, DH, C-Truth the Revelator, Gold Professor, and Arthur Unknown. And also I want to give a shout out to Dr. Tiasan Johnson, Kalan Jakala, Ricky Dawson, Cedric Bowman, 27360, BK Born Shaheed, James Washington, Hostile Adept, W. Pierre 1, Marvin Battle Jr., and my brother in heaven, Forrest Windu. Big up to y'all. And on the Patreon side, I'd like to give a shout out to Kevin Marchbank Owens, William Joyner, Javon Thompson, Tyrone Hampton, Jules Winfield, Romello Scuggs, Darnell Smith, Excalibur, Jason Warren, Anu219, Pursuer Prisoner, Taz, Kwaku217, Dragon 59, Supreme Ibmore, Adrian Hicks, Jay Bailey, Mr. Michi, Momal, and Asangwa. Big up, man. Y'all deserve a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you for your ongoing support and helping me to keep this thing going and dealing with me, the technical difficulties here and there and my absence here and there. But big up to y'all, man. Thank you so much for your help and your ongoing support. I appreciate that. And if you're inquiring about how you can become a member of the Green Gorilla channel, then here's how you do it.
What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Today I want to introduce you to my new membership program that consists of 5 levels where you can invest in the Green Gorilla channel on a monthly basis and receive level-specific perks. Memberships are special because they improve the quality of the content of the channel and will help me to be able to keep the channel going. Now, to participate in the Green Gorilla Channel membership program, all you have to do is hit the join button, which is located right next to the subscribe button on my channel page. Now, for all of my subscribers who decide not to participate in my membership program, nothing will change. The content will keep coming the way it always has. Thanks for watching, and be careful out here, people. Bless.
All right, man, we're back. You know who I am, man. I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla Channel. It's the place where black men are allowed to express themselves freely, straight up with no chasers. And so today we're going to have a conversation about a relatively new academic discipline. And the name of that discipline is fat studies. No, you did not hear wrong. There are no mistakes. There indeed truly is a new discipline emerging in the academy, and it's called fat studies. Now, before I make any comments related to this issue, the first thing I want to say is, I'm not here to, make fun of, to deprecate, to cajole, or to dehumanize people who are overweight. I'm not here to do that. There are various reasons why people can be overweight. So I'm not here to make fun and, to poke those people, to make a bad condition worse. That's not what I'm here to do. But I am here to look at the discipline and to critically evaluate it and to see if there's any merit in it. And I think that, the extent to which people are dehumanized, I think that's always wrong. However, dehumanization in and of itself does not make the acceptance of something that causes illness acceptable. And that's where I want to, that's where I begin and where I end. So let's dive deep off into this rabbit hole called fat studies. And I'm going to share the screen and we're going to get right to it. So let's do that. And shout out to Xavier Sifo, by the way. I appreciate your contribution. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that. So, just to let you know that fat studies actually exist as a discipline, what I have is a Google search on the compound phrase, fat studies. And you'll see that actually there is a discipline by the name of fat studies. It exists. This is not a joke. This is not sci-fi. This is not fantasy. This is real. Actually real. So you can see in the first tab that I have here, right? Fat Studies, Taylor and Francis online. Let's hit the tab. All we got to do is hit the tab and look at it. And you'll see that there are a variety of articles, book reviews, and so on and so forth dealing with the subject matter of fat studies. And you can see that the studies have academic journals dedicated to them. And in particular, what I'm talking about now is the journal by the name of Fat Studies. There are like several volumes of this publication in print. And, you can peruse the tabs on your own at some point in time, and you'll see introducing fatness and law, discrimination, disability, intersectionality, fighting for a wide enough seat at the table, weight stigma in law and policy. You'll see another article, the anti-stigma principle and legal protection from fatism. Failure to launch one person, one fare airline policy and the drawbacks to the disabled by obesity legal argument, and so on. You can go further and further and further, okay? That's Taylor and Francis, okay? You also have handbooks published by Oxford. They exist now. These studies exist. This is not a joke. This is not a game. There is something called the Oxford Handbook of the Social Science of Obesity. And this book is published by Esther D. Rothblum. Yeah, I'm just saying, just in case you don't believe me, like if you think I'm capping. New York University Press has a fat studies reader. Yes, it exists. Okay? So I'm just letting you know, let me turn off the music. I'm letting you know in no uncertain terms that this discipline indeed does exist. But exactly what is it? What is fat studies? What is it trying to get at? What's the point? Okay? And we have to examine what the point is to understand why it is a discipline in the first place, but then we have to evaluate whether or not this discipline is either encouraging or discouraging unhealthy statuses of persons within the context of American society. That's the question I want to ask and the question I want answered. Is it possible that this is an apology for a health crisis, a defense of an unhealthy status for groups of persons? Now, let me just make something clear, man. We live in America, man. We live in the Western world. We have McDonald's, Burger King. We have Five Guys, burgers and fries. We have Pizza Hut, Domino's, Papa John's. We have Fridays and all you can eat smorgasbords where you can gorge yourself to your heart's content with food primarily that's not healthy at all. And I'm not trying to say that all of the people who are subjected to the vicissitudes of the kind of diets that Americans, for the most part, have taken on, I'm not even saying that they're primarily responsible for it, as much as this is the environment in which people live. We eat processed foods regularly. It's convenient. And people who are poor live in food deserts. And so the food that they consume, even the food that they buy in the supermarket, is often of a low caliber. There's not too many whole foods in the hood. This is the facts. These are the facts. That's a fact, okay? So all I'm trying to do is to ask and answer a question. Is fat studies promoting death Or is it merely worried about recognition at any cost? Particularly the people who are at a tipping point to where they are inches away from a health crisis that can be prevented. This is what I'm worried about. Okay? So let's look at what it is. What is fat studies? What is it? So I have an article here published in The Conversation, which is an academic blog. Okay, that's what it is. So people in the academy, see, Tommy Curry has written a piece for The Conversation. I mean, there are all types of different academicians who've published, right, in this newsletter. Okay, so there is an article dedicated towards the subject matter of fat studies. So let's take a look at it so we can get some sort of handle on what the point of it is. So the article is written by, I want to make sure that I, identify who the author is. Her name is Deborah Lupton. She's the Centenary Research Professor at the University of Canberra. Okay? So let me enlarge this just a little bit so it is something that you can actually see. Okay? So Deborah Lupton basically argues that fat studies is an area of research and scholarship. It's not about fat as a dietary substance, but rather about fat human bodies. So it's not about diets, she says, but I don't know how you can disconnect diet from fatness. I'm not exactly certain how that occurs, and of course it wouldn't be about diet, because then you would have to talk about the ways in which people's diets that lead to fatness is unhealthy. But, I don't even want to go there, okay? Anyway, it is an interdisciplinary field, she says, combining perspectives and research methods from the humanities and social sciences. Now, let me stop right there. I want you to pay attention to that. It combines perspectives from the humanities and the social sciences. It is not consulting medical science. That, to me, in and of itself, is a glaring problem. It's an obvious issue. That's a problem. But I'm not going to go too deep off into it at this point. Anyway, she basically asserts that it builds on the tradition of gender and queer studies. So, in other words, fat studies is an offshoot of feminism and queer studies. It's an offshoot from LGBTQ studies and an offshoot from feminist studies, okay? It focuses attention on the social, cultural, historical, and political aspects of the ways in which fatness as a phenomenon and fat people are portrayed and treated. Now, let me say this before I move on. Again, what I'm not here to do is to poke fun or to ridicule or humiliate people who are, as fat studies would describe it, fat. I'm not here to do that. That's not what the issue is for me. Okay, but the issue is whether or not the politics of recognition is a proper replacement for the truth about health status. And if it looks at or examines reality in a way to where people actually are going to be ameliorated from any underlying health conditions that they may have. But that's a glaring omission. There's no medical science involved. Also, it's only worried about how, fat people throughout history have been treated. Look, I've been talking to you for quite a bit of time. Everybody is getting in the way of having a meaningful and a substantive conversation about racial problems in the United States and in the Western world in general. It all started with the civil rights movement, where people were actually making an appeal for fair and just treatment after centuries of human bondage. Centuries of being treated like an animal as opposed to a human being. As soon as that was over and black folks had actually had the civil rights bills passed, the Fair Housing Act passed, and they were able to see light at the end of the tunnel, everybody else wanted to find a way or a means by which to thrust themselves into the picture. So along come white women. They were the first to step up to the line, and they, for the most part, just basically blotted out the subject matter of race. Then come the gender theorists who, conjoining with white women, remove race out of the picture and worry about their own concerns related to recognition. Notwithstanding the fact, if we want to mention it, that none of these people were actually placed in subhuman bondage on account of them either being gay or being women. There's no history books that you can read that you will find that talks about how people were transported across continents in order to serve as slaves anywhere on account of either their gender or their sexuality. You just don't see it. But now those issues are unimportant, not really important anymore, okay? What's important now is that we give recognition to that which has not been recognized, but only if it's the acceptable kind of recognition. But I fear now we're going off the deep end. We're like becoming Kafkaesque in the kinds of things that people are actually arguing that they want recognition over. I think it's going too far. This is Orwellian. I feel like I am watching Black Mirror. But I'm actually, I'm a witness of what's happening in the real world. I don't quite understand some of the things that are occurring contemporarily in the academy and politically. But all I can do is look at it and evaluate it, critique it, and share it with you so that you can understand it your dang gone self. That's all I can do. But anyway, she goes on to say, in the late 20th century, concern began to be expressed in medical and public health circles about an apparent obesity epidemic in the Western world, including Australia. The media reported warnings from doctors and health promoters that an increasing proportion of people in these countries could be categorized as overweight or obese using the body mass index measurement. This was viewed as a public health crisis, as it was calculated that people in these categories would suffer from higher rates of illness and disease and die prematurely. Okay, so the claim was made by healthcare professionals that Americans have a problem with weight. This is what health and medical professionals are telling people. There's a problem with weight. Weight has a correlation, a connection to health. And diet has a connection to health. So at any rate, the article is basically, I assume, going to assert that, look, there actually is no health epidemic related to obesity. Why? You might ask, is there no health crisis related to obesity? Which is what this woman is going to assert, right? You'll find out in a second. So anyway, she basically says news reports refer to the ticking time bomb of obesity and the subsequent need to wage a war on fat. These reports and other media portrayals of fat people like The Biggest Loser, and there are many other shows like it. There's one show where there are people who have to be transported to see a doctor who agrees after they lose a certain amount of weight to perform surgery on them. I don't know the name of the show. I don't like watching reality television like that. I just do not. But at any rate, she goes on to say that these reports and other media portrayals of fat people frequently portray them not as only unhealthy, but also ignorant, lazy, gluttonous, ugly, and a drain on health budgets. So that's the issue right there. Yes, be honest. My 600-pound life. Now, look, I've never been over 220 pounds, man. And I'm 6'3". One can argue that genetically, I am an ectomorph. That's just how I'm built. I'm not a mesomorph or an endomorph. I am an ectomorph. I am naturally slim. My waistline is never gone over 38. So I'm lucky. That's a genetic gift, one could argue, to be slim. And am I going to say that, people who are overweight don't get picked at and they don't get made fun of? I think that they do. Do you remember Good Times and how they used to go off on Rerun and call him Buffalo Butt and whatever the case may be? Buffalo Butt. Or not, the guy who, Bookman, that's his name. And then you got What's Happening, where you had Rerun and he was made fun of because of his weight. And you got movies where you got little fat kids who get pushed around and, the movies and stuff like that. Look, we've seen these images. And we've seen, like people get made fun of on account of that. So do I think that that's wrong? I actually do think that it's wrong to make fun of people and to dehumanize them. I think that's wrong. Okay? However, we still need to be clear. If someone is morbidly obese, we don't need to be encouraging that kind of behavior. That is not positive. So for the sake of recognition, you're willing to forego a person's health? I just don't understand it. But anyway, the headless fatty image commonly used in news coverage showing the body of a fat person with the head cropped off. And there you got one such image. Okay? While news producers may argue that the person's head was removed to preserve their anonymity, activists have argued that this convention works to further dehumanize fat people. Now, nobody wants to get sued, and I understand it. So one group of people view it one way. The media says, okay, we're showing people who are obese with their heads cropped because we don't want to embarrass them, but we do want to draw attention to what we consider to be a health crisis. And then on the other hand, you have the people who are in fat studies saying this is just a way to dehumanize people who are overweight or who are fat. They don't even use the word overweight. They just use the word fat. Because they're like, black folks have appropriated the word nigga. These people are going to reappropriate the word fat and to transform it from something that's negative into something that's positive. So, the idea is I'm fat and I love it. I'm fat, you got to deal with it. Okay? So anyway, fat acceptance is the next subtitle here. Public health campaigns used by governments to encourage people to lose weight have frequently employed messages and images that portray body fat and fat people themselves as disgusting and shameful. It is often seen that rather than waging a war on fat, such campaigns are directly attacking fat people. Now, this is the thing, man. So this is why you're beginning to see in I'm telling you what happens. In the academy, ideas crop up. And because there's a connection between popular culture and the academy right now, what you see is these kind of ideas circulating, then they get filtered into popular culture, and then you see Lizzo twerking or something like that. Then you end up seeing, everybody fawning over her, talking about how wrong it is for people to not perceive her as beautiful because she doesn't have what is prototypically perceived to be an aesthetically pleasing body. So the idea is, in order to fight against the dehumanization, and I do believe that you can be dehumanized for being overweight. I do think that can happen. However, I don't think that you can regulate, monitor, legislate people's perceptions about other people's aesthetics. You can't do that. That's not going to be successful in the long run. I can guarantee you that. That will not work. And by the way, thank you, Mr. Heat. I appreciate your donation. I appreciate that. It's one thing to say don't dehumanize a person. It's another thing to say that people who look, quote unquote, fat ought to be made into what is culturally or aesthetically, the most beautiful kind of body. Like this is not how reality works. Now, it could be the case that there are people in different cultures who associate plumpness with beauty. But only certain kinds of persons, for example, in Japan or in the Orient, where you have the sumo wrestlers or something like that, okay? They're considered, or made to be attractive in a certain kind of way. I don't perceive it as attractive on a woman at all, personally, for it to just be morbidly obese. Some people like that. There are people who have fetishes and that are into this. It's not something I'm into, okay? Thank you. Shout out to Terrell Blacksley. Thank you for your donation, sir. Appreciate that. Trying to put it up here, but it won't, for some reason. It ain't doing what I want it to do. But that's neither here nor there, man. Anyway, in response to these portrayals and the increasing stigmatization of and discrimination against people who were deemed to be too large activists have called for fat acceptance and body positive initiatives. So this is what the body, like if you start to hear body positivity and all of that kind of stuff, you are moving into the realm of fat studies. That's where this comes from. Okay? The body positivity stuff comes from fat studies. That's the origin of it, okay? So anyway, these challenge simplistic assumptions that thin people are healthy, virtuous, and responsible citizens, whereas fat people are diseased, morally culpable, and unable to control their appetites. Activists have taken up the term fat instead of medicalized terms like overweight and obese because of their connotations of unhealthiness and disease. So in other words, they are going to ignore medical health professionals and usher in, they're going to just basically say, based on humanities and social science studies, which to me is irresponsible, to be quite honest. This is basically saying, I'm going to eat and be fat and I don't give a fuck what my doctor is telling me. This is what this is spelling to me. This is what this spells out to me. And is it the case that, like sometimes people can become preoccupied with weight to the extent to which diets become harmful? I do understand that. That's something I'm well aware of, okay? But here, I think that what we have to do is strike a balance. We have to strike the midpoint between two extremes. We have to avoid the excess and the deficiency, because there are some people who are so preoccupied with weight that they're involved in bulimia and anorexia. So, I mean, you have to strike the midpoint between two extremes. That's how you attain virtue, especially amongst, the ancient Greeks. The idea is that you have to avoid the excess and the deficiency. Avoid being underweight and being overweight and strike the midpoint between two extremes. In the mean lies virtue and beauty. Now, have women been preoccupied with not being fat and so on and so forth? I think so. But I don't think the answer is just saying, well, we're going to be body positive even if we're overweight, even if our doctor is telling us we're obese and that we potentially are harming ourselves and our future health. Fuck what the doctor is saying. I'm just going to do what I want to do because, damn it, some English professors said it was okay. It's absurd to me. Okay, but anyway, the use of the term fat studies to describe an academic field is a reflection of this preference. There are strong intersections, and again, everybody wants to use this fucking term now, intersection. There are strong intersections between fat activism as a political movement and the academic field of fat studies. So in other words, fat studies is an activist movement. Some university researchers contributing to fat studies combine activism with their research. Another term that is sometimes used by researchers is critical weight studies. Now, all this shit is like critical race studies or critical race theory. Now, this is becoming absurd to me, okay? I'm just letting you know it's becoming absurd, okay? Anyway, this incorporates critical research into all sizes of human bodies, including the extreme thinness of those people living with restricted eating disorders such as anorexia or the highly muscular bodies of athletes. So anyway, contradictions in the war on fat. And look, what I don't want to do is go off into this and stay there forever, okay? It's not a very long article, okay? Anyway, Fat study scholars are interested in a number of key questions. How is fatness defined and portrayed? And how has that changed over time? How does it differ between geographical locations, between social groups and cultures? What is it like to be a fat person in a fat-shaming world? What kinds of social and economic discrimination do fat people experience, and how can it be alleviated? My guess is that it cannot. People who look better have better life prospects and opportunities than people who don't. Didn't make it that way, it's just the way it is. Is it unjust? Is it unfair? Probably. But how do you rectify it? People who are taller tend to be taken more seriously and given jobs versus persons who are smaller in stature. This is just how it is. Is it wrong? Probably, but it's the way it is. The beautiful girl gets courted by wealthy men. The pudgy, frumpy, not so hot looking woman does not. It's the way it is. I didn't make it this way, but this is the way it is. So these people are trying to change culture to make it more comfortable for people who perceive themselves as not being recognized. And as I say, it is wrong to dehumanize any human being. But I don't think that just accepting anything from anybody is the answer to acknowledging and recognizing them in a substantive way. That's just my opinion. I'm all about the philosophy of movement. That's what's positive about the body. Human beings were not made to be sedentary and to drink Coca-Cola and Pepsi and Kool-Aid. They weren't made to sit at computer terminals for 8 to 10 hours a day. We weren't made to lay down and eat. This is not who we are as a species, but it's who we are now. And the question is whether or not this is healthy. I don't think it is. But I digress, man. Anyway, what are the political and ideological underpinnings of the obesity crisis and the war on fat? Some researchers have engaged in detailed analysis of the medical and epidemiological literature on obesity, drawing attention to discrepancies and contradictions in definitions of obesity and calculations about its health effects. So in other words, you got researchers, not medical researchers, but people in the humanities and the social sciences looking at medical, professional, and epidemiological literature and being critical of it. Let me tell you how they do so. They do so by saying, and so there's a book called The End of the Obesity Epidemic, right? There's a guy named Michael Gard, and he argues that the crisis hasn't happened. There's not an obesity crisis. It's just hyperbole. It is hysteria drummed up by a group of medical professionals who really don't know what they're talking about or that are wrong. Because, human beings are living longer, and so therefore, because they're living longer, there can't be an obesity crisis. This is precisely what they're saying. And they call it the obesity paradox. And part of it is that fat people with certain chronic diseases are sometimes healthier than thin people with the same conditions. Now, how this supposedly translates, this is bad argumentation. We already know that there are going to be some thin people who have worse health issues than people who are fat. This does not in any shape, form, or fashion debunk the claims made by medical health professionals that obesity and diet have a correlation with health and longevity of life. What's the future of fat studies? The fervent news coverage of the obesity epidemic has died down somewhat over the past few years. Experts in medicine and public health are recognizing the complexity of body weight and its association with illness and premature mortality. But discrimination against fat people continues. So look, when was this article written? I don't see a date for it. I don't see a date for the article, man. I wish I could see a date for this article. So in other words, what she's basically saying is that, this guy, Michael Gard, wrote a book called The Obesity Paradox, where he brings out or teases out a thesis called the obesity paradox. Namely that like people in the Western world are living longer. And so therefore this whole notion of there being an obesity crisis is counterintuitive. It's not actually occurring is what they're saying, okay? However, so this is a medical links document, okay? And it covers research by medical health professionals. And it weighs in on this issue. And what they basically seek to do is to debunk the whole concept that there is an obesity paradox. Namely, that being fat can actually make you more healthy. Because there are some people who are beginning to say this, that if you're fat, you're protected more so than if you're not. And in the black community, you already know that if people are thin, they assume that there's something wrong with you. You ain't eating enough. Your people are poor or something like that. Put a 1 in the chat if you ever heard that, man. That if you thin, your family ain't feeding you and that you're frail and you're not actually healthy. We even call people who are on the precipice of being overweight, we call them healthy. In the black community, bro. If you've heard of that before, man, put a 1 in the chat. Oh, he healthy. Oh, she healthy. Oh, he's healthy. We do it all the time. Again, what I'm not trying to do is I don't want to dehumanize anybody. But I got to tell the truth as it is. And in the article, which is written by a woman who, in all likelihood, is a medical healthcare professional, she basically says, fat does not have a protective effect on the risk for cardiovascular disease. Because there are people who are beginning to, because of this whole body positivity movement and fat acceptance and this whole notion of the obesity paradox, they're beginning to say, well, you could be fat and more fit and healthy than a person who's slimmer. There may be exceptions, but that's not the rule. And any misconceptions about being fat but fit should be erased post-haste, according to recent research. The obesity paradox stems from several studies in which researchers previously suggested that being overweight or obese, especially in the elderly, may not be deleterious at all, but instead protective, with no effects of CVD and all-cause mortality. So in other words, you got researchers more than likely researchers from fat studies who are coming out and they're saying, well, if you're old and your grandma, Big Mama, they call her Big Mama for a reason. Because black people's diet, bruh. All we do is eat a diabetes diet, man. On Thanksgiving? Oh my God, man. We eat dressing, fried chicken, sweet potato pie, fries, pizza, spaghetti, rolls, ice cream, cookies. You know what it is, man. You know the black diet, man. And then we put some greens in there and think this shit healthy. Oh, eat you some greens. Eat you some greens. Get you some vegetables. Get you some vegetables. You know it's true, man. Like all that shit you just ate. The mac and cheese, the pork and beans with all kind of brown sugar in it. The fried pork chops in Crisco. Man, come on, man. We know it. Our diet is not optimal. It's based on a slave diet. But I'm digressing from the main point. I'm moving beyond the point. Because ultimately what this article does is it shows that there are 3 recent studies that have debunked the idea that fat may be protective in any way, especially with respect to cardiovascular health. So when you go to the doctor and the doctor weighs you and looks at your body mass index, they look at your height, they look at your weight. The first thing you do when you go to the doctor is they get your ass on the scale and they put a thermometer in your mouth and they take your blood pressure. That's the first thing they do. They tell you to get on the scale. When you go to the doctor, don't they make you stand on the scale? If you stand on the scale, if you short, man, I ain't gonna even go there, man. Anyway, I ain't gonna even go there. Let me be quiet. Anyway, so there's 3 recent studies that say in regards to cardiovascular health, weight or fat is not protective at all. And they have done so in large cohorts with long follow-up periods. As evidence mounts, debunking the obesity paradox, let's take a look at the 3 latest studies to do so. Okay? The first of these is a large study conducted in the UK, which was published in the European Heart Journal. Now, this is a medical health professional academic journal or professional journal. It's not humanities and the social sciences. These are the hard sciences. So anyway, researchers from the University of Glasgow compared cardiovascular disease outcomes in overweight versus healthy weight individuals. They included almost 300,000 participants. It's 296,535 to be exact, but participants from the UK Biobank study of all white European descent. 57.8% women using 5 measures of adiposity, they determined the incidence of fatal and non-fatal CVD events. In all, 3.3% of women and 5.7% of men had a cardiovascular event. Those with a healthy body mass index had the lowest risk of CVD, which is cardiovascular disease, after which increasing BMI was associated with an increasing risk of CVD. So what does that tell you? It tells you that as you become overweight, as your body mass index increases, you have a higher susceptibility for cardiovascular disease. Now, this is among white folks, right? They not really concerned about us for real anyway. Anyway, they go on to say BMI increases by 1 standard deviation above the average, or BMI increases by 1 standard deviation above the average was associated with a 13% increased risk of CVD events, including stroke. Researchers saw a similar increase in risk as well for 1 standard deviation increase in waist circumference, waist to hip ratio, waist to height ratio, and percentage body fat. Participants with the BMI less than 18.5 kilograms, I guess per square, meters of mass or whatever, which is considered underweight, also had a higher risk of cardiovascular events. So if you're underweight, you can also have a higher risk of cardiovascular events. In another study published in The Lancet, so basically what they're doing is saying and I said this earlier, it's the midpoint is where you'll find health. It's the golden mean. You have to strike a balance between the midpoint between two extremes. Being overweight is not healthy. Being underweight is not healthy either. In another study published in The Lancet, researchers used data from 90,000 women in the Nurses' Health Study who were followed up for up to 30 years. So this is a long-term study, down to 30 years, right? In women who were obese but metabolically healthy, CVD risk was increased compared with those who were metabolically healthy but of a healthy weight. So if you were obese but metabolically healthy, you had a higher risk of CVD compared to those who were metabolically healthy but also had a healthy weight. So if you were overweight, you had a worse or an increased chance of cardiovascular disease. We're talking about heart attacks. We're talking about having to get bypasses and shit like that. Okay? Anyway, the researchers the researchers of the previous study, these researchers found that CVD risk was not only higher in women who were overweight and obese, but also in those with metabolically unhealthy normal weight. In a third study published over the past year in JAMA Cardiology, researchers used data from almost close to 200,000, 190,672 person exams pooled from 10 large U.S. prospective cohorts who were followed from 64 to 2015. They found that lifetime risks for CVD were higher in middle-aged adults who were overweight and obese compared with normal weight adults, despite similar longevity. Higher BMI had the strongest association with heart failure. But while the message is clear that obesity is a strong risk factor for CVD and other chronic diseases, it is also clear that exercise and diet can go a long way to getting to a healthy weight and reducing risk of CVD and other diseases. So in other words, the FAT study says, okay, well, we're going to ignore science because, people are living longer. And then when you compare, and then when you go to the science, it basically says when you compare people who have normal weight or, their BMI is where it should be, they have less risk associated with CVD than people who are obese, who have a high BMI. I mean, it makes sense. Your body, your heart has to work harder. But anyway, man, I say all this to say, right? Now, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Why even go there? Well, I'm doing it for a reason. Can I get rid of that? Okay, so what we need to do next is we need to look at the female-male disparity in obesity prevalence of young Black American young adults. That's what we're going to do next. Because it's going somewhere. I'm going to make it relevant to Black folks. Okay? We're going to make it relevant to Black folks. And what do we have? Black American young women are much more likely to be obese than their male counterparts if their parents have less education, according to this study of data from a U.S. public health survey. It is unclear whether this disparity arises from distinct gender-related obesity mechanisms or differing obesity-related behaviors. So, they're leaving it up in the air. My suspicion is that, come on, man, let's just be honest about this, man. Let's keep it real, man. So if your parents are not smart and educated, the idea here is that those with cultural capital are going to have a better diet. Okay? Then the people who have less education are going to be typically, less wealthy. And if you're less wealthy, you're going to live in food deserts. And so your diet is not going to be as, it's not going to be as enhanced as that of an upper middle class Black family. They're not going to have the best of eating habits. Whereas the Black family who's upper and middle class is going to have better eating habits. Right? And so you're going to have less obesity or whatever the case may be. So anyway, it has long been known that Black women are more likely to be overweight than Black men. But little is known about factors associated with this disparity. This analysis looked in particular at socioeconomic status using data about Black and white young adults gleaned from the National Longitudinal Study of Adolescent Health. The study surveyed adolescents in grades 7 through 12 in the mid-90s and then resurveyed the same responders as young adults 7 years later. Data from 2,096 Blacks and 5,651 whites was analyzed. And here are the findings. As expected, the rate of obesity was almost 12% higher in Black women than Black men. There was no gender disparity among whites. In Black families in which neither parent completed high school, 45.4% of young Black women were obese. That's too fucking much, man. Now, the funny thing is, even if you were from a poor family and you're a young black boy, damn near half of the women are going to be overweight, but only less than 20% of the men are going to be overweight. What does this signify? What does this actually mean? It means that these women aren't working out. They're not working out. They're not going to the gym. They don't believe in moving. This is cultural. I don't have to work out. Man, I've seen young girls, man, who are basically at the point where they feel like I don't have to move. I'm not running. Like I'm not going to run. Oh no, that's too much. And then they do the fainting couch shit. I've seen it with my own eyes. I don't want to do that. Oh no. I actually have to move. I have to exert some effort. I have to challenge my body. The human body is a machine that's built to be rugged and to do some pretty death-defying and some dope shit. You can see the Olympics, people who train their bodies, men and women can train their bodies to do like unbelievable things. But this is a sedentary, lazy ass culture in general. And black folks are a part of that. Beyond. Wait a minute, bro. Ain't nobody finna do all that. There you go. That's it right there, bro. That's it right there, bro. You hit the nail on the coffin right there, buddy. Anyway, this prevalence difference dropped sharply as parental education increased, with the disparity between black men and women in families with at least one college-educated parent dropping to less than 3 percentage points. In whites, the prevalence of obesity did not vary with any factors as much as parental education did with blacks. Because they don't live in food deserts and they don't have a slave diet. They don't eat all that shit we eat. I mean, they eat it, but not to the degree that we eat it. I done had dinner over white folks' house before, man. They ain't never broke out the chitlins, the yams with so much sugar in it. You feel like you're spooning sugar straight out of the bag into your mouth, bro. I mean, you can say what you want about white folks and food, but I'm just being honest, man. We put sugar in everything, bro. Sugar and butter and damn near everything, man. Anyway, the link between parent education. So basically, they're calling for education for black folks in order to deal with the problem of obesity. Okay, all right. But I think the issue should be clear at this point. And this is not a pun, but fat studies has been weighed and is found wanting, man. We know we want people to feel good about themselves. Every human being should be acknowledged as having value and worth. But we also have to encourage people to not be sedentary, to get out and move, to actually challenge themselves, to not get caught up into believing that the sedentary lifestyle that's been provided for us is actually healthy and good and beneficial for us. It's not the best kind of life. Fight Life says body acceptance is a fat white woman's movement. If it were blacks, it wouldn't be a thing. Oh, trust me, black people are into it now. You can believe it. They might not have been into it, but they're into it now. They're pushing the envelope. Because anything white women do, there's going to be a black woman in the academy who's going to come along and try to remix the shit with intersectionality, bruh. And that's the beauty of the theory. All they got to do is say, okay, well, let's do some intersectionality with this and talk about black women's bodies and all of this. Come on, man. Chance, come on, dog. Oh, man. Look, y'all some hardcore dudes, man. But anyway. And last but not least, the obesity among black women is outrageously high. And this article was written by a black woman. Anyway, do I think it's wrong to, make fun of people about their weight? Yes. But we can't have an entire race of people, man, who basically, are like, fuck, I don't give a fuck about health, nothing. You can't tell me shit. I love being fat. I'm gonna be fat and black and I don't give a fuck. Like, that's what we on now? It's delusional. It's obstinate. It's ignorant. Are the fat black men or black men overweight? Yes. There are a lot of overweight black men. So this is not just pinning the tail on the donkey of women. But we got to stop lying about this shit, man. We got to stop the cap, man. Cut it out, man. Being fat ain't healthy, man. It just ain't, man. It ain't. The studies demonstrate it's not healthy. Damn, Charles, man. Come on, dog. Oh, man. This is how you know we're westernized, bruh. You can't tell a Western person shit because we're all about subjectivity. Doesn't matter what the studies say. They'll create another fucking discipline to basically argue against what medical professionals are telling them what they know about the human body. Who would you trust more? The motherfucker in the sociology department or somebody at the fucking medical hospital telling you about your weight and its connection to your health? Now, we can talk about how wrong it is to make fun of people on any account. I think it's wrong to make fun of people. But if we have a medical problem and we can find a way to solve it, we ought to try to take objective understanding into account and utilize it as a means by which to ameliorate the condition of our health. That's what it is. This ain't got nothing to do with making fun of nobody. It's about understanding. We got a slave diet. We're sedentary. We become so westernized. We Chick-fil-A every fucking day and ramen noodles and shit like that. That's not healthy, man. Sugary drinks with sucrose. And all these damn preservatives and all of these chemicals, we don't even know what's in it. Like, I guarantee you, man, half the shit we consume, we don't even know what the fuck it is, bruh. I bet you, bruh, we don't know what half the shit we eating is. I remember that commercial, man, when they talked about Breyer's ice cream and how one brand of ice cream or most of the other brands had something called polysorbate 80. And then when you looked at the Breyer's commercial, all they had was milk and cream and blah, blah, blah. Like, what the fuck? Man, half the shit we're eating, man, is not even meant for consumption. Anyway, man, let me just read a piece of this article. I'm not gonna read all of this because I think it's wrong to go after people and to humiliate them. That's just my opinion, man. Anyway, Betty Busby, who's 55, has struggled with her weight since high school. It's in my genes to be chubby. That's bullshit. It's not in your genes to be chubby. It's in your diet and the environment in which you live and your non-movement. I guarantee you when they first came to us in Africa, it wasn't a whole bunch of black fat ass women. I guarantee you it wasn't. You go to Asia, it ain't a whole bunch of just humongous fat Asian women or men. They have a different kind of diet, man. Now, not to say that there aren't any overweight people, that's a lie, okay? Or people with large BMIs. That's not true, but come on, man, overwhelmingly? Anyway, I've always thanked God that I have a man that loves my shape. He still thinks I'm sexy with my small waistline, big hips and thighs. I will be forever grateful for that. However, Busby's significant other has been upset with a recent drop in weight and size of her hips. So now it's always a way to blame a Negro for some shit, man. Don't lose your weight, baby. I love your fat ass. Man, I just don't know what to say, bro. Anyway, she's saying she's trying to improve her health, but this Negro is driving her down. Anyway, he want her ass to be fat. I mean, man, dude, man, I'm telling you, bro, there's no way you can win this shit. If he was telling her to get slim, she'd have been like, he fucking making fun of me. He say, okay, baby, don't lose no weight. I like you how you are. Still a fucking problem, man. I'm telling you, man, but it is, like Mike Love say, it's too many brothers, man. They accept overweight women. We have been enculturated to tolerate overweight women, bro. Our cultural aesthetic is one to where we accept women who are borderline one fucking burger away, dog. You already know the truth. You know what it is, bruh. We call it thick. She thick, dog. Is she? She thick, dog. If you and her had to run to get the fuck out of there, could she keep up with you? Yeah, she ain't gonna be able to keep up with you all the way. But damn, if she gonna be breathless if she running down halfway down the block, that's an issue, man. And that's a cultural problem. Anyway, in addition to the health issues, Busby said her shape has caused problems in shopping for clothes that smaller women can typically buy off the rack. Men are often verbally assertive with unsolicited comments and reactions to well-endowed women. She's talking about women with a fat ass, okay? I guess. As a young adult, I had to learn to live with the harassment. Butt slaps were really offensive. I just hated when a guy would not back down with coming up to me in a public place. I asked one guy why he was so persistent, and he responded with, "I'm afraid if I go home without your number, I'll never meet someone with you or meet someone like you again." Busby also said the work world can be a tricky environment, particularly if you encounter a female superior with different, smaller physical attributes than you. Males will move boxes for you, open doors, and pay special attention to you, said Busby, who's employed by the Los Angeles Department of Public Social Services. Oh, shit, man. Let me stop. Anyway, African American women are reportedly more susceptible to being overweight or obese than any other race. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Office of Minority Health has reported that roughly 4 out of 5 African American women are either overweight or suffering from obesity. This statistic has a lot to do with the long-standing history of African American culture, socioeconomic status, stress, and dietary habits that have been passed down from one generation to another. I agree with that. Cultural standards and barriers. Some will argue that there are a number of cultural barriers. Fashionability, family responsibility, stressful lifestyle that may also challenge or prevent African American women from exercising regularly. Bullshit. Bullshit. Because a nigga get out there and play basketball, won't he? That same broke ass nigga, he'll take a basketball, man, and go hoop all Saturday, all Sunday, won't he? Am I wrong? Won't that same Negro, these young little dudes, won't they get out their ass out there and hoop? That's a question. It ain't rhetorical. Don't they get their asses out there and they hoop, bruh? You know, if you can't hoop in the hood, that's an issue. Damn, nigga, you don't know how to, shoot the rock, dog? My thing is, if you can find time to leave your kid with your mama in order to get some D, you can also do that same shit, leave it with your mama, go and hit the gym up or walk around the motherfucking block a few times. But men do accept this shit. Black men, man, accept it. We call it fat. She got a fat ass, dog. Look at that ass. But I'm not trying to go off on anybody. Because you got black men who are overweight too, to some degree. All I'm saying is, man, America has an obesity problem. Unfortunately, black women are prey to that obesity problem because we are, we've become so westernized, our diets are fucked up, and we don't believe in moving. But I'm done with it, bro. All I wanted to do is just say, hey, look. To me, man, I understand what fat studies is about. It's about, not having people feel bad about being who they are. But like, come on, man. Like, if you know you have an issue, you know what you don't need to go on these crazy diets, man, that's gonna kill you or something like that. You just need to move some. And you don't have to look like a white girl. You know what I'm saying? A skinny white girl who's got anorexia or bulimia. That's not the problem. The problem is we don't move at all. We weren't made to be sedentary, man, and to just sit our asses and try to look cute and pretty and shit. That's not what human beings were made for, male or female. And you're right, Cosmic Jen. Nothing is going to happen to these fast food companies. You know what? It don't matter what you do. The one thing I give Michelle Obama credit for was she tried to deal with the issue of obesity in the black community, especially for young black girls. At least she made that attempt. And they, the people on the right excoriated her for it. Whether for right or wrong, this is how this shit go. They'll laud one of their own for the same policy that they'll knock, the opposite party for. But all of that is just optics anyway. These people are in bed with one another in ways that you can't even imagine. But at least she made an attempt to bring awareness to, having a healthier diet and to actually exercise. So it is what it is, man. Fat studies to me, man, in the end analysis, is an attempt to justify the unjustifiable, to be defiant in the voice of reason, to say, look, I know I'm not living a healthy life, but fuck it, you're going to love me anyway. You're going to respect me, God damn it. And unfortunately, life just doesn't work out that way, man. There is a mean as it pertains to the human body, man. There's some things that are more beautiful as it pertains to it, and there's some things that are not. Appreciate y'all all out there. I see you, Doc Johnson. Word up. Thank you for, dropping by and hollering at me. And look, I appreciate your work earlier today. How the educated women, how they call black men the N-word without calling them the N-word. That was a good one, Doc. But anyway, all I'm trying to do is just draw light to the craziness that's going on in the academy now, man. They'll justify anything. And all of this crazy shit is coming out of the Women in Gender Studies program. And I'm telling you, the politics of recognition has been hijacked from black folks, particularly from black men. You can't say shit now. They got it to the point where you can't, if you're a black man, you better not talk about race. These black women will allow white colonial settler white women to say whatever it is they want to say about us, and they'll demonize us because think about it. If you really want to help us, if you really ride or dine with us, if you got some problem with us, you're going to fuck with us and keep what's going on with us in the house. You ain't going to go out and start putting all our fucking business in the street with these white motherfuckers. But that's what you're doing. You just bad-mouthing us in the public trying to drag us down, drag us to the streets, put us on blast. But you riding with these white colonial settler motherfuckers? Come on, bruh. That's all I'm saying, man. Come on now. That's who you're rolling with now. That's your ace boon coon now, huh? That's your BFF now, huh? That's your ride or die now. I'm starting to believe, man, like that Brenda Vernon woman said a while ago, man, and that WPJ. That white pussy juice. Oh, man. I hope the 30 pieces of silver, man, works out for you real well in the long run, man. What profit does it do a man to gain the world but to lose his soul? Well, that's it for tonight, man. I ain't got nothing else to say. All I can say is, you know, everybody wants to be recognized. Now you got it to the point where you could be a fat white lady and have a greater chance at utilizing the civil rights framework which black folks fought for. Or if you're a white woman, you could utilize the civil rights framework in a better way than, more adroitly, and it'll conform to what your claims and your needs are. More so than a demographic, man, who's been subjected to the most violence, the most debasement, and the most dehumanization that has ever existed within the context of this culture and in this society. And that, to me, is Orwellian, is Kafkaesque, and it's ridiculous. Fat people were never made to be slaves. They were never hung for trees for being fat. Think about that. Till the next one, man. I'll holler at y'all, man. Peace out, man. I'm out of this bitch.